Hailing from the Wanyi Nation in the Gulf of Carpentaria, Australia, Alexis Wright is one of the most prominent writers in the country. Historically, the way to pass down important Aboriginal stories, just like most other Indigenous peoples have, is the oral tradition of storytelling in those communities, which will always include life lessons and the honoring of predecessors. Unfortunately, the Western world did not make allowances for this method, instead only recognizing the written word as the medium for historical documentation. Essentially, if it wasn't written down, it didn't happen. This, you will see, is a recurring theme in the treatment of Aboriginals. Not seen, not heard, not respected, basically non-existent. But Wright had a gift to incorporate aspects of both of these conveyances of literature, written and oral, and, in turn, make Aboriginal voices heard. Tony Hughes Daith writes, quote, "When I teach Alexis Wright to my students at the University of Western Australia, I tell them not to read, but listen. Her writing pulses with the unmistakable cadences of the spoken word. The voice in Wright's work gains a substance and life that convert her writing into speech." End quote. In 2006, Wright's novel Carpentaria opened a floodgate of awards and recognition for the author, quickly establishing her as a talented writer and extremely valuable as a global voice. With writing this strong, clearly it was greenlit by the first major Australian publishing house to read it. Or at least the second. No. In fact, every single major publisher rejected the novel until it was finally picked up by Giramondo, a small, independent publisher. The novel won the Miles Franklin Award in June 2007, the 2007 Vance Palmer Prize for Fiction, the 2007 ALS Gold Medal, and the 2007 Fiction Book Award in the Queensland Premier's Literary Awards. For Wright's part, the author has published every one of her books through Giramondo since then, rewarding the publisher with her business loyalty, despite the prospect of much bigger paychecks from publishing houses that previously ignored her. But writing and awards are really just the result of Alexis Wright's impassioned quest for equality, justice, and respect for the Aboriginal people. Writing is only an aspect of the author's identity, and to truly see the content of Wright's character, one must look at the foci of her words. Wright has never been a fan of governmental overreach, particularly when it comes to Australia's First Peoples. For example, Wright's first nonfiction book was titled Grog War and discussed the issue of white laws that governed alcohol in Australia's Indigenous communities, policies that have been nakedly racist. Historically, the Australian government has banned the sale and consumption of alcohol on Indigenous lands while keeping it completely legal in whiter, non-Indigenous communities, despite the rampant alcohol abuse in their own population. Essentially, white lawmakers felt that they knew better than the Indigenous people and made laws that disallowed any decision-making authority in those communities. Wright refers to these colonist lawmakers as, quote, one-hit wonders pretending to speak for Aboriginals, end quote. She has been quite outspoken on many issues, including land rights and the theft of land from Indigenous peoples in Australia. In addition, Wright has railed against horrific governmental policies that have cost many Aboriginal children their identities. It is about this issue that Wright stated, quote, "Now we find this terrible situation where the government's riding roughshod yet again, trampling heavily, bringing down the sledgehammer approach, without understanding that we need greater dialogue," end quote. Imagine a mostly white government taking very young children from their families and community, bringing them to what are essentially re-education camps, and training them to do everything in the proper English way, from language to history and appearance to identity. Essentially to make them more like what the powers that be viewed as civilized whites. Not in the year 1813, but in 2013. At that time, major investigations revealed abysmal living conditions at these places, and the psychological damage to these children was and is immeasurable. In the Swan book, Wright states, quote, "It was very difficult, impossible really, to survive if you never existed," end quote. A truism that has significance beyond the book's pages. Alexis Wright continues her work, stronger than ever, but also faces an oppressive culture of government and a white Australian perception that is as powerful. She has many more years to write and to fight, but she can't do it alone. It would be a mistake to view such issues as Australian problems, as almost all lands of the world have their own marginalized communities of Indigenous peoples. If Wright's activism and boldness in the face of adversity speaks to you, Consider making the issues of justice and autonomy in Australia's Aboriginal communities your business, no matter who you are. That is why the author creates these books and stories, to involve you in the battle for good. And if someone asks why you're talking about injustices a hemisphere away, just tell them that Alexis Wright sent you. Thank you to InsideStory.org, Goodreads.com, Encyclopedia.com, The Guardian, TheMonthly.com AU, and UQP AU for content assistance in this podcast.